So before we start learning today, I want to dedicate today's shir Ilui Nishmoso Shelo Isho HaChashuva Moras Gittel Bas Reb Zayin Veldov, the mother of my dear, dear friend Reb David Weinstein from Teaneck, New Jersey. Reb David is a wonderful person and a wonderful family. I actually learn with Reb David on a steady basis and with his children as well. So your mother should be a Malitzas Yosef for the entire family. V'tanuach b'sholom al mishkav. And the Torah we learned today should be Li'ilui Nishmosa V'lezichra HaTohor Moras Gittel Bas Reb Zayin Veldov. The topic we will be discussing today is fascinating. It's important. It has a remez in this week's parsha, and it is also relevant to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this week we read Vayakel Pekudei, totally dedicated to a Komis Mishkan, and in Parshas Pekudei, V'yehi ma'as kikar hakesef lotzekes esadnei hakodesh v'esadnei haparoiches ma'as adonim lema'as hakikar kikar la'oden. Balaturim says the ma'as adonim tiknu kenegdam mea brochis b'kol yom. So the second part of today's shiur will try to explain the essence and the depth. What is the kesher between mea brochis and mea adonim? But first, let's discuss this sugya. Menoches mem gimel omed beis. Reb Meir is mechadesh. Chayev odem levorach mea brochis b'kol yom shenemar. Mo Hashem elokechod shoyel me'imcha. Al tikra mo ela mea. So mo, mem hey, is transformed into mem aleph hey. Al tikra mo ela mea. Chayev odem levorach mea brochis b'kol yom. So the first and most important source to this halacha is a Menoches Mem Gimel Amid Beis, based on a posuk in Toras Moshe. But we find some other sources in Midrashim, Tanchuma Pashas Koyach Medrash Rabbe, and the Torah brings it in the name of Rav Natru Na'ig Gaon. In the days of David HaMelech, David HaMelech was made aware there's a terrible pandemic, a terrible epidemic, a Magef in Yerushalayim, and 100 people are dying every day. David was matakan mea brochas b'kol yom, and the epidemic was over. And that is the source of mea brochas b'kol yom. And it is once again based on a posuk, not a posuk in Toras Moshe, but rather in Shmuel Beis Chov Gimel. Ne'um David ben Yishai, Ne'um Gehagever Hukam Ol. Ol is Ayin Lamed. Ayin Lamed is Gematria, the numerical equivalent of 100. Ayin is 70, Lamed is 30. That is the source of Chayav Odom Levorech Mea Brochis B'Kol Yom. Source number 3. Moidem Anachno Lefonecho. That is Berchos Oidoya. 3 times every day in Shemoy Nesla. Moidem is Begematria, 100. 2 Mems is 80. Yud is 90. Daled and Vav put together is 100. Moidem Anachno Lefonecho. Sefer Korboy and Roshes Mahari Shweib, Talmud of the Rashba. Source number 4. The Chidon Shalas Tshuvas Yosefay Mitzimah Nun brings Ru'isi b'Sefer Kosnes Or Labal Ponem Me'irois, that the Mea Brochas B'Kol Yom are connected Tzadik Ches Klolois that we find in Mishnah Torah. The Parsha of Techocha in Mishnah Torah has 98 curses. Tzadik Ches Klolois. Kenegdam tiknu mea brochis. But 98 is not 100. Kol mako v'kol choili v'kol mako is the other 2. So the 100 brochas are keneged mea klolois. And once again, we see that the mea brochas b'kol yom are ma'oire racha mishamayim. And they are the mishkal neged to all the curses and all the midas adin that we have in the world. And the Chiddur writes, I found that this goes all the way back to Sefer HaRakech, Marabeseinu Oreshoinim Megedolim Mekubolei Ashkenaz, Shin Chaf. Kosnesar is a very interesting sefer. I would never know about it if not for my late and great father. The Ponamidas was one of the greatest poskim, but he has a sefer Kos Nasar al HaTorah, Pilpulim Gag al Gag. Nobody learns these form today. Besides some Klosenberger Hasidim, because Moide Verabi, that was his Friday night pshetel at the Tish. He was a huge mefalpel, and my father loved it. I remember many times at the Tish Friday night. So going back 50 years, even somewhat more, there was a very small oilam. Hasidic chetzeres weren't nearly as big as they are today. And sometimes Friday night, by the great Divrei Yatzev, Tzadik Yesad Oilam, the Godel Ador, there were 50 and 20, 25 people at the Tish, not many more. And sometimes it was 2:30 in the morning, everybody fell asleep. My father never closed an eye, and he loved those pshetlach. So anyway, Kos Nasar is a sefer I grew up with. It's a big sefer from the Pona Me'iris, Pilpulam al Seder HaParshios, and the Chidor quotes the sefer. And other remez and reasoning, rationale for Mea Brochos B'Kol Yom Keneged HaKlolos Sheba Mishnah Torah. Are we dealing with a mitzvah d'oraisa or a mitzvah d'Rabbanan? So if it is based on a pasuk in Torah, Moshe Parshas Eikev Mo Hashem Elokechu Shoyel Me'imoch, it might be d'oraisa. But it's not reasonable that that's a drosha gemura. Al tikra mo elamea, but mo is mo and meo is meo. And there is no aleph in that word in the Torah. Tosfos on the spot brings various different interpretations. How does mo turn into mea? Mea brochas b'kol yom. One pshat in the name of Rabbeinu Tam. This parsha has 100 letters. So we need to add on another letter. So the other letter might be the vav of shoyel. So the Mesoris is without a vav. The mikra is with a vav. And that is the remez. 100 letters keneged mea brachos. Or maybe the aleph is the letter that we need to add on. The aleph that turns mo into mea. Another pshat Tosfos brings, Beloshan Adabash, Memhei is Tzadik Yud. Tzadik Yud is Begematria Mea. So we have 4 different Ramozim. How do we know? And what are these Mea Brochos all about? So the first one is a Menachos Mem Gimel based on a Posuk and Parshas Eikev. Is that Min HaTorah? Rambam Shoresh Aleph Sefer HaMitzvos brings Halachas Gedolos. Halachas Gedolos includes Mea Brochos B'Kol Yom in his list of Taryag Mitzvahs. Seems to be his opinion that it's Min HaTorah. Sefer HaManig writes, Kabbalah B'yodeinu ma'avuseinu leMoshe Messinai chayav odom levorach Mea Brochos B'Kol Yom. Does that mean halacha leMoshe Messinai? Maybe. I don't think so. The Rambam clearly writes it's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, and it's just an asmachta. So writes the Ravya in Mesechet Brochos. And I think the Halachas Gedolos and the Manig would agree. It is well known that the Halachas Gedolos includes in the number of Taryag mitzvahs d'Rabbanan as well. And his fundamental opinion is, doesn't necessarily mean that there are Taryag mitzvahs d'oraisa. And when the Sefer HaManig writes, Kabbalah b'yodeinu ma'avuseinu Moshe Messinai, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's halacha Moshe Messinai. Maybe it just means to say it goes all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the first metaken tekonos. The very end of Masechet Megillah, Lamed Beis Amud Aleph, we learn Moshe Tikkel and Yisrael, she'oiskim behilchas hachag b'chag, and that's not a chiyuv d'oraisa. The Chidor and Machzik Brocha Simen Reish Tzadik. When the Shulchan Aruch says Shabbos, we're lacking some brochas. Because Tfilas Hamidah Shmoyna says Shabbos, instead of 18 brochas, is only 7 brochas. And we don't say a brocha on Tfilin. So Shabbos one should be mashlum with fruits, vegetables, cake. And the Gemara says Reb Chia was the one that taught us how to be mashlum the Mea brochas. Shabbos, mina madanim, migdonim, fruits. The Chidor says this is a midas chosidus. It's only a midas chosidus. But it's very unreasonable to say it's not a chiyuv. The Lashon of the Gemara says, chayev odem levorech. And that's the Lashon of the Rambam, Perek Zayin Halacha Yud Daled Melchus Tefillah. That's the Lashon of the Shulchan Aruch, Mem Vav Siv Gimel. So I think the consensus is we're dealing with a mitzvah derabanan. A mitzvah gemura, but a mitzvah derabanan. Which brings us to the second question. Are women included in this mitzvah? I don't recall any of the Rishonim dealing with this question. Nobody says yes, but then we ask, why not? It's not a mitzvah to say shazman gram. Because the mitzvah is mea brachas b'kol yom. Not necessarily which brachas. Yes, the Rambam, the Tur, the Shulchan Aruch, the Mishnah Berurah all have a list. But that list is only a practical, functional list. The chiyuv mea brachas b'kol yom probably is any bracha. And yom means yom v'layla. The list of the Rambam starts with a mapel she'eno b'yene that we say by night. V'yom hoylech achar halayla. So why would women be exempt? But I think women are exempt. The mere reasoning, nobody says women are chayiv. Would we say it so poshut that nobody has to say it? I don't think it's reasonable. Because if the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Tzaddik says, Shabbos, we need to be mashlim. What's the problem Shabbos? Because we're lacking brachas. So why doesn't any posik say that women need to be mashlim? Women are lacking every day. First of all, in days of yore, women didn't daven the Shmoyne Esrei. Mogen Avraham Semekuvov writes, Nashe Didan, don't daven Shmoyne Esrei. The Yoitze Chiyuv Tefillah, when they say Moidani Lefonecho every day in the morning, and that's it, and the Yoitze Mitzvah Tefillah. And maybe Chazal were not mitaken, Shoresh Tefillah B'kol Yom only for Anoshim and not for Anoshim. So why doesn't the Mogen Avraham ask the question, what about Mea Brochas B'kol Yom? Even those Noshim, Bisman Hazeh that do daven, most of them don't daven Marav because Tefillas Avos Shis, and they only daven 2 Tefillas a day. They don't say the brachas on Tefillin. They don't say Birchas Kriyas Shema because everybody agrees Noshim P'turot Mikriyas Shema. So just like the Shulchan Aruch and Reish Tzaddik teaches us how one is Maslim Shabbos to fill the number of Mea Brochas B'kol Yom, why doesn't any posik say what women are supposed to do every day? I think this proves beyond doubt that Noshim don't have the chiyuv. Why not? So let me share with you why not. To many, what I say now will seem to be a tremendous chiddush. To me, it's not a chiddush at all. And it's dvorim hamisyashvim ala leiv bepashtutam. Chazal were metaken mea brochas b'kol yom. Maybe David HaMelech b'shas Hamagefa, as I quoted before. But when Chazal were metaken mea brochas b'kol yom, they took into account that in the normal routine, in the Seder Hayom, we have mea brochas. And when Chazal decided it is fitting that a person should say mea brochas b'kol yom, what they had in mind was not to burden a person to figure out and to be mamtzi and to improvise brochas. In the normal Seder Hayom, yes, we have mea brochas, and they are clearly enumerated and defined in the Rambam, in the Tur, in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Mishnah Berurah. So we only have a Shabbos. We only have a problem with Shabbos and Yom Tov. Maybe special circumstances, you couldn't go to shul, you had some problem, you were in the hospital. But Noshim that are potter from many of these brachas, Chazal lechatchila wouldn't burden them, and they don't have the chiyuv of mea brachas b'kol yom. In other words, mea brachas b'kol yom is not a din that stands by itself. It is part of the fundamental structure of the Seder Yom Shel Odem Yisrael. And maybe it is one of the reasons that Chazal were metaken these brachas. Because a person needs mea brachas b'kol yom. And because women don't have a chiyuv to daven the Shmoyne Esrei, according to the Mogen Avraham, definitely not marav, and they're not machayev b'kriyas shema v'berchos seyo. And according to some poskim, they're not mechuyev in Berchas HaTorah, and they don't say Berchas HaTefillin. So Chazal were not mitaken the entire concept of Mea Brochas B'Kol Yom for women, kach nera pashtus advorim lanius daiti. So Shabbos, one needs to improvise, because Shabbos were lacking some of the brochas. And Reb Chia improvised with fruits, cake. But we have some chidushei halacha based on the need to improvise and to be mashla mea brochas and Shabbos. It is a very common minig, kiddush Shabbos, Shabbos in the morning, we make kiddush and we eat cake, we eat fruits, we eat snacks, before we actually wash to the Suda. So that is very common in shuls, especially Hasidic shuls. Almost every Shabbos you have a kiddush. When there's a simcha beis medrash. Many shuls, primarily in America, it's not really common in Eretz Yisrael. We have a kiddush every Shabbos, regardless of whether there's a simcha or not. The kiddush is the simcha. We make kiddush, we eat, and then everybody goes home to have his own meal. Many Hasidim are moyig, even at home. We wash, eat cake, and only then do we go to the Suda. That was my father's minig. It is not my minig. I make kiddush and I wash. My father every Shabbos made kiddush, ate cake, ate kugel, ate some other things, and only then washed. That was the minig of his Rebbe, my Rebbe, the Divrei Yatzav, the Kloisenberger Rebbe. And I think that is generally minig Hasidim. But many poskim argue this is halachically problematic, because the Ikar Suda Shabbos, you need to wash. By Shalosh Shudas, the Shulchan Aruch brings various different opinions. Do you need dafka bread, berchas hamoitzi, or mezainis, maybe fruits, maybe wine? But the first two Sudas, yes, you need bread, you need pas, hamoitzi lechem, and also berchas hamozain. And it's an inyan to eat l'teyavon. So you eat cake, you eat herring, you eat a million different things. I was in some Kadeshim in America. Wow, that kiddush is bigger than any Suda Shabbos I would ever eat. All kind of meats and dried meats and this herring and that herring and a million different types of cake and a zillion kugel and gala and I don't even know what else. So when it comes to Suda Shabbos, you're not that hungry. You're not eating l'teyavon. But the source of this minig is an Or Zarua. Or Zarua, Erev Shabbos, Simach Ofanav, and he reads that was the minig of Rabbeinu Klonemos, Kedei Lashlim Mea Brochas B'Kol Yom. You're adding on a few brochas. So Rabbeinu Klonemos had that minig to make kiddush, eat mezainis, eat fruit, and only then wash to the Suda to supplement and to try to fill in Mea Brochas B'Kol Yom. Chasidim Anoyeg, Nusach Sfarad, to say Ein Kelakenu every day in the morning. But in the Rishonim we find that this is a minig Shabbos and Yom Tov, and why is that? Because the Shmoynes Esrei on a weekday is 18 brochas. Shabbos it's 7. 18 minus 7 is 11. 3 tefillos is 33. Ein Kelakenu, Ein Kadonenu, Mi Chalokenu, Baruch Elokeinu is 33. In each of these statements is Keneged HaBrocha, so it's 33. To fill in the 33 brochas, we're lacking in the Shmoynes Esrei. That is found in Kolboy and in Droshes Mahari Shweib, who was a Talmud of the Rashba. So we find various minhagim that were lachatchila niskabel and put into place based on the need to fill in the number of Mea Brochos B'Kol Yom. Which brings us to a very fundamental question, which is a big machlokes between the Shla and the Magen Avraham. I need to give a brief introduction before I explain this machlokes. Shulchan Aruch Chaim Reish Tezvav Hilchos Brochos Siv Daled. The Shulchan Aruch says it's a Issa Gomer to say a brocha she'ein tzricha, and he's over on Es Hashem Elokecho Tiro ve'ein oinen omein achrei berchotav. That's based on a Gemara Brochos Lamed Gimel. But when the Shulchan Aruch says it is an Aveda to say a brocha she'ein tzricha, he is not referring to what most of the Achronim call a Bracha She'ein Tzricha. When the Gemara deals with a Bracha She'ein Tzricha, the Kavanah is a Bracha Levatola, and the Shulchan Aruch as well. What most Achronim refer to a Bracha She'ein Tzricha is a Bracha that's not a Bracha Levatola. But there was no need to say this Bracha. You could have prevented the need to say the Bracha. So b'shoshe mevorech, it's a Bracha Tzricha. It's not a Bracha Levatola. But you brought about the need to say this Bracha in an artificial way. And that is what we call a Bracha She'ein Tzricha. So let me explain. Let me give you some examples. If a Bracha says, Berchas Anahen, and he doesn't eat. He said Berchas a mitzvah, and he's not Makayim the mitzvah. Ashikadeshona b'mitzvah yisav etzivonu anatilas lulav. And he doesn't take the lulav. Or he does, but he makes a hefsek between the Bracha and eating, between the Bracha and the mitzvah. That is a Bracha Levatola. If he stands Monday morning and he says, Shachiyona v'kiyomona v'giyona l'zman for no obvious reason, that's a Bracha Levatola. If he says, Berchas Shachar twice, or he says, Hamoitzi Lechem Menorah twice, that's a Bracha Levatola. And regarding Bracha Levatola, it's a machlokes hashonim whether it's in Siduraisa or in Sidurabanan. Toises Rosh Hashanah Lamed Gimel says this Sidurabanan. Rambam is mashma in Siduraisa. This is what the Shulchan Aruch calls a Bracha She'ein Tzricha, and he writes, Ein oinen amen achrei brachoisav. He's referring to a Bracha Levatola. What do the Achronim call a Bracha She'ein Tzricha? You have a platter, many peiros. So you make a bari pri weights, you eat some fruit, and then you decide to say, Bari nefashos. Okay. And then you say another bari pri weights, and you keep on eating. There was no need to say the bari nefashos. You could have said the bari nefashos when you finished eating, and be poiter all the fruits, everything you ate and drink, with one bracha. It's not a bracha levatola. Which one is a bracha levatola? When I said bari nefashos, I was chayav to say bari nefashos. You could have avoided. You could have waited till you finish eating. That is a bracha she'ein tzricha. It's not a bracha levatola. So when he said bari nefashos, of course you should answer amen. And when he said another bari pri weights, of course you should answer amen. Because after he said bari nefashos, you once again mechuyev to say bari pri weights. That is what we call bracha she'ein tzricha. So there's a machlokes Magen Avraham and Shlit, whether it is justified to make a bracha she'ein tzricha kedei to be mashlim mea brachas. You can't say a bracha levatola to be mashlim mea brachas because tartel reisa. You went from bad to horrible. You went from bad to worse. Not only the bracha levatola is not mashlim, it's an aveira. Some say it's an issa diuraisa. It's a shem lekech otira. But when we're dealing with a bracha she'ein tzricha, that's the machlekes. So what are the examples? I want to give 3 different examples. So the Shlo says, when a person eats Suda Shabbos, and normally there is some food that he would eat Toich Kadei Suda, but he wants to make another bracha or another 2 brachas. So he leaves one of the dishes till after benching, and then he's going to eat it after benching. It's not a bracha levatola, because when he benched, kedin birech, after benching, and he wants to eat some whatever it is, he's mechuyev to say the bracha. But this is artificial. There was no need. In the middle of the week, you would eat that in the middle of the Suda. So there was no need to cause another 2 brachas, bracha shana, bracha achroina. But the Shlo says it is justified to fill in the mea brachas. How do I define the machlokes Magen Avraham and Shlo? Let me say this. According to the Shlo, it's not the bracha she'ein tzricha. Tzricha v'tzricha. What is the tzorech? Mea brachas. So why do you call that a bracha she'ein tzricha? It's not eino tzricha. You need that bracha to fill in the mea brachas. The Magen Avraham's opinion is no. filling in mea brochas is not a brocha tzricha. Brocha she'ena tzricha is based on hilchos brochis. Hilchos brochis. Regarding the dinam of brochas proper. Eitz adomo, moitzi, bonin afoshois, me'en sholosh. This was not necessary. In normal circumstances, you would avoid this brocha. That is not a brocha hatzricha. That's the opinion of the Magen Avraham. So the Magen Avraham, Reish Tes Vav Siv Kot Vav, quotes the Shlo and disagrees. And he also quotes the Galanti, Reb Moshe Galanti, Shalas Tshuva Siman Ches. Slightly different than the Shlo. Same principle. Same fundamental idea, but slightly different. So in Shuvas Maharam Galanti, he says, a person could in advance tell his wife, don't serve a certain dish. Leave it till after benching. The Shlo is mashma, the dish is on the table, but you decide not to eat it and leaving till after benching. That is more problematic than a person telling his wife, don't serve. Leave it in the kitchen. It's not on the table. So it's not niftar with the brachas we said. It was never part of the meal. But the Magen Avraham is mashmi, disagrees with both of them. You need to learn the Magen Avraham. First he brings the Shlo, he rejects the Shlo, and then he brings the Galanti. But I think the Mashmor says he disagrees with them both. Torah Lishma, Shalas Tshuvas from the Ben Ish Chai, Siman Samach Daled. He says, when a person has various fruits on his table, and it's Shabbos, he wants another bracha, another two brachas. So he could eat the dates or the figs, or the apples or the pears, say a boy pre-weights, and say a boy nefoshes, and then eat other fruits. Same bracha. There was no need to say two brachas, but after I said the bracha achroina, I once again need to say a bracha rishoina. And it's justified to be mashlim mea brachos. According to the Magen Avraham, it would not be justified. So this goes all the way back to the Rambam. Rambam Perek Zayin Elchos Tefillah Halacha Yudalad brings the halacha chayav odem levorach mea brachos b'kol yom, and the Rambam brings the dilemma: what about Shabbos and Yom Tov? And the Rambam says Shabbos and Yom Tov were mashlim with peres. How? He gives an example. Oichel k'tzas miyerek zeh umevorach v'choizer v'oichel mipri zeh umevorech. So the Rambam clearly says, you set a brocha on vegetables, and then you say another brocha on fruits. That's a brocha she'en tzricha. What does he mean? Well, you could patter the fruits with boire pri adom and they set on the vegetables. But no, I want to say a boire pri weights. But I think the Rambam's kavona is he says a boire nefoshes, and then he needs to say another brocha. So the Lecha Mishnah says, no, let's not have a mistake. That is a brocha she'en tzricha, and you can't do that. It's an issur to say a brocha she'en tzricha. What the Rambam means is, he eats whatever he wanted to eat now. And it's after Hesach Hadas. He eats again. So what's the revus of the Rambam? My understanding of the Lecha Mishnah, and I think it fits in with the Rambam as well. I wrote this in Minchas Osher Al HaTorah in the new edition. So to my dismay, it's been a few years that this sefer is not available, because we're having a new edition, which is an expanded edition, twice as big as the previous one. It's a very famous one. As for now, we only had Chumash Bereishis. I hope within a few months we'll have the entire set, which is being written and published. The Ilui Nishmas Ishti passed away a few years ago, as you all know. Pesiente Basra Reisol Arya. So, in that new sefer, I wrote extensively about both Brocha Lavaton and Brocha She'en Tzricha, and about the Machloikes, the Magen Avraham Shlo. So what I mean to say is this. Person eats fruits, and he ate enough. Brocha Rishona, Brocha Achroina. In the middle of the week, he wouldn't eat an hour later. He would, wait for supper. Shabbos, he's going to eat again. And the only reason he's eating is he wants the brachos. Doesn't really have appetite. He's not hungry. It's not very appealing to him. Is it justified to eat in order to say brachos? Would that be defined as a bracha she'eina tzricha? I say no. That is legitimate, even according to Magen Avraham. So what the Magen Avraham rejects is, if you're eating b'chod ha'machta, and you're in a way causing a chiyuv to say brachos when there was no need. The previous brachos you said could pater everything. That is a bracha she'eina tzricha. But if a person eats not because he's hungry, he eats because he wants to fill in the number of mea brachos b'kol yom, even the Magen Avraham would agree, that is legitimate. And I think that is the way the Lechem Mishnah understands the Rambam. So as I said, this is an important sugya. How important? The Chidush Harim adds a profound touch to the Baraturim. So the Baraturim, I quoted at the beginning of the Shiur, is Ma'as Adonim. Keneged Ma'as Adonim, in the Mishkan, Tiknu Mea Brochis. The Chidush Harim notes, what are the Adonim? They're not part of the beauty of the Mikdash, of the Mishkan. The Adonim held the Kroshim. They are the actual fundament of the entire Mishkan. You cannot have a Mishkan without Adonim. So many parts of the Mishkan were beauty, lekavod v'leteforos, not the Adonim. The Adonim are essential. Without the Adonim, you can't erect the Kroshim. Without the Kroshim, you have no Yerias, you have no Mishkan. So in the private Beis HaMikdash, in one's own private Mishkan, and what do I mean, private Mishkan? Megillah Chavtes, Mikdash Mad, Bota Knesses, Bota Medrash Shebebavel. And not only shuls and yeshivas, every Jewish home. Seit Yud Zayin, Ish ve'isha shezachu shchinish ruya b'neihem. Every Jewish home is a Mishkan. And a famous shiur from Rebbe Elazar Azkari, the Baal HaCharedim, B'toich libi Mishkan evna lezivoy. Every Jewish heart is a Mishkan. So the Ma'as Adonim of your private Mishkan are mea brochos b'kol yom. And just like the Adonim were the fundament of the Mishkan, the mea brochos are the fundament of your private Mishkan, of Asheros Shechina, of your private Avodas Hashem. I heard in the name of the Chazon Ish, I don't know whether it's in his writings, but I heard this from some of his Talmidim. If a person is makpid, mea brochos b'kol yom b'kavona, nothing brings him closer to our Kodesh Baruch Hu. Because there are brochos, primarily berachos anahanan, that a person says b'esach hadat. Did it ever occur to you, sitting at someone's table, and a person takes some food, or he takes a drink, he takes a cup of water, and he drinks, and you didn't even notice whether he made a bracha. But you did notice that his lips twitched before he started drinking that cup. He moved his lips. That was his bracha. So, berachos anahanan is something we just take in stride, and it's so natural. It is something we do b'hesech hadat. But just think for a moment. If you would put that cup down, take a moment to concentrate. What am I going to say? Thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for this cup of water. Thank you for my mouth. Thank you that I could drink, and I could enjoy the food I'm eating, and I could enjoy what I'm drinking. Some people can't. Some people have terrible illnesses. They cannot eat or drink. Hundreds of thousands having COVID-19 felt no taste. And it's quite annoying. So just take a moment and think about berachos anahanan. It'll take you another 3 seconds, but before you drink, before you eat, take a moment to think, to concentrate, and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Atu Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, she'akol niyu b'dvoroi, boire pre-weights, boire minim zonis. And then you say, boire nefoshes rabis v'chisroino, mal kol masha baroso, la'achyois bohem nefesh kol chai. How much that would add to your avodas Hashem. How profound. It's a game changer. It will change your life. It will bring you close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu all day long. Those are the Ma'as Adonim. Those are the Mea Brochis B'Kol Yom. And they are so important. So we're less than 30 days before Pesach. 30 Yom Lifnei Chag. Shoyana v'dorshim b'Hilchos HaChag. I quoted the Ramban a million times. Oh, a million is an exaggeration, but so many times. The Ramban at the end of Parshas Boy. All my Talmidim know this Ramban by heart. The Ramban explains why is it so important that we remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. And lest Chaz v'Sholom we forget. Sipi Yetzias Mitzrayim, Schias Yetzias. We have so many mitzvahs that are Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. Shabbos, all the Yom Tovim, all the dinam of Bechor. Bechorod, Bechor Behemet Tohira, Bechor Behemet Tomeya. Why is that so important? The Ramban says. Tachlis HaYetzira HaRishoina. The reason for creation. Ve'ein El Elyon Chafetz B'Tachtoinim. Kadosh Baruch Hu from above has no need in anything on this world. Ki im sheyeda ha'adam v'yodele Eloikov shebaroi. Man should recognize and give thanks and praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're here, that we were created. That is Tachlis Habriya. Did anybody say this before the Ramban? Yes. Who? The Rambam, the Rishonim, the Goyim? No. All the way back to the Novi Yeshayahu, Perek Mem Gimel. Am zu yotzarti li, tihilosi yisaperu. That is our duty. That is our mission as Jews. That is what we are all about. To sanctify Kodesh Baruch Hu's name in the world, between the nations. Am zu yotzarti li, tihilosi yisaperu. Ein el elyon chafetz betachtoinim ki im. Sheyeda ha'adam v'yodeh le'eloikav shebaroi. Just a week ago we had Purim. Let me share with you an amazing thought in Minchas Osher Sichas on Purim. To me it has so much appeal. Why don't we say Halal on Purim? Megillah Yudal, Kriyos Zeilula. We say the Megillah, and Megillah is Halal. But Megillah is not Halal. There's not one posuk of Halal, Hodoyah, Shia, V'Shevach, thanks, gratitude in the Megillah. It's a story from beginning to end. Even more than that, Shem Hashem is not mentioned in the Megillah. We don't even mention HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name. So how could you call it Halal? So some Rishonim say, well, but when we read the Megillah, we take it for granted. Every person will thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that doesn't fit in with the Lashon of Chazal. Kriyuso zu hilulo. Kriyas Megillah is Halal. Not that it will bring to Halal, it is Halal. So how is Mikra Megillah Halal? It occurred to me, and after I thought about it, you got to be blind not to notice. It is so obvious, it is self-evident. The only Sefer in Tanakh in which we are described and defined as Yehudim is in Megillah Esther. In all other Sifrei Nevi'im, Ksuvim, Teres, Moshe, Chov, Dalet, Zvorim, we are defined either as Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, Ivrim, only in Megillah Esther, Yehudim. Why is that? What does the name Yehuda mean? So Chazal say, Yehuda ato Yeducho achecha. What was that bracha to Yehuda? That for eternity, throughout the generations, throughout the ages, nobody will say, Ploini Shemoni, Ploini Godi, Ploini Zvuloni. They will all be called Yehudim. Al Shem Yehuda, Yehudi. Even Koyanim and Nevi'im, descendants of Shevet Levi. and they were the most important part of Klal Yisrael. Even they will be called and defined Yehudim. And that is the Brachot to Yehuda, Atu Yeducha Ochecha. But the Medrash doesn't say why. And I'll tell you why. What does the Shem Yehuda mean? What does it reflect? When Leah had Yehuda, she says, Hapam Ode et Hashem. Yehuda is giving thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is what it means to be a Yehudi, to be a Jew. To be a Jew means to thank, to sing the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why we're all Yehudim. And that is why Megillas Esther is the only Sefer in Kisvei HaKodesh in which we're called Yehudim. Yes, it's not explicit. We don't say Hallel in an explicit fashion. It is concealed, but it's obvious. And you can't miss it. This Megillah from beginning to end is the story of the Jews, a Jewish story. The story of Yehudim. And why are they Yehudim? Hapam Oides Hashem. That is our mission in the world. That is the message we are to convey, singing the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kol haneshama tahalel al kol neshima uneshima. And that is what Mea Brachos B'Kol Yom is all about. So try to make it a habit. Take it upon yourself. Every bracha, not only Shmoneh Esrei, not only Berachos Kriya Shema, not only Berachos Hamazon and Berachos HaTorah D'Oraisa. Focus primarily Berachos Hanahanan, Bracha Rishoina and Bracha Achrona, and you'll see what a huge difference that'll make in your lives. I promise you. So let us all say Mea Brachos B'Kol Yoyim B'Kavonas Alev, and hopefully, like it happened in the days of David HaMelech, when we say Brachos B'Kol Yom V'Tiyotzer HaMageifa, and this pandemic should shortly be over in Eretz Yisrael and in the entire Jewish world and in the entire world. We should be Ba'orer Rachamei Shamayim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should take this away, and we should be able once again to converge and come together and learn together and teach together as we've been doing for thousands of years. And we should be Zoiche to Yeshuis and Achomeis. Ki ameitzeischa me'eretz Mitzrayim arenu neflois bebias Moshiach tzedkeinu b'mheru v'yomeinu amen.